10 of the strangest unsolved mysteries of all time. The incident at Dyatlov Pass. On the first night of February 1959, 9 ski hikers died mysteriously in the mountains of what is now Russia. The night of the incident, the group had set up camp on a slope, enjoyed dinner, and prepared for sleep. But something went catastrophically wrong because the group never returned. On February 26th, searchers found the hikers' abandoned tent, which had been ripped open from the inside, surrounding the area were footprints left by the group, some wearing socks, some wearing a single shoe, some barefoot, all of which continued to the edge of a nearby woods. That's where the first 2 bodies were found, shoeless and wearing only underwear. The scene bore marks of death by hypothermia, but as medical examiners inventoried their bodies, as well as the other 7 that were discovered over the months that followed, hypothermia no longer made sense. In fact, the evidence made no sense at all. One body had evidence of a blunt force trauma consistent with a brutal assault. Another had 3rd-degree burns. One had been vomiting blood. One was missing a tongue, and some of their clothes was found to be radioactive. Theories floated include KGB interference, drug overdose, UFOs, gravity anomalies, and the Russian version of the Yeti. Recently, a documentary filmmaker presented a theory involving a terrifying but real phenomenon called infrasound, in which the wind interacts with the topography to create a barely audible hum that can nevertheless induce powerful feelings of nausea, panic, dread, chills, nervousness, raised heartbeat rate, and breathing difficulties. The only consensus remains that whatever happened involved an overwhelmingly and possibly inhuman force. Sickening Noises. In December 2016, a CIA officer checked in to the American Embassy's health office in Havana, suffering from nausea, headache, and dizziness. 2 days later, 2 more CIA officers reported similar ailments. By late 2018, the number grew to 26 Americans and 13 Canadians experiencing nausea, hearing loss, vertigo, nosebleeds, and focusing issues. In all the cases, victims claimed that the symptoms were triggered by a strange noise they'd heard at their homes or hotel rooms. One person said the noise was high-pitched, another described it as a beam of sound pointed into their rooms. Some insisted that the noise more closely resembled marbles running along the floor. The illnesses confounded medical experts. Doctors at the University of Pennsylvania who examined some of the victims diagnosed concussion-like symptoms, but found no signs they'd suffer concussions. We know what you must be thinking. The Cuban government is up to something, right? The Cubans denied that they're responsible, and many American investigators believed them. That's because they still don't know who or what made the victims sick. Was it a new type of a weapon? The CIA claims it doesn't know of any weaponry that could cause these symptoms. What could? Ultrasound? One theory holds that a pair of covert eavesdropping devices placed too close to each other by the Cuban agents may have inadvertently produced such a reaction, like the kind of feedback you hear when someone stands too close to a microphone, but the FBI has found no evidence to substantiate that argument. In fact, ultrasound is above the range of human hearing. Recordings of the sounds from some of the victims only added to the confusion. 2 scientists who studied the recordings believe they captured the sound of lovelorn male crickets. One of the scientists, Alexander Stubbs of the University of California, Berkeley, says that the insects are incredibly loud. You can hear them from inside a diesel truck going 40 miles an hour on the highway. Still, the scientists had no idea why the sounds might lead to illness in humans. Maybe it was just nerves. Cuba is a high-threat, high-stress post. A former embassy official told ProPublica.org, diplomats are warned that there will be surveillance. There will be listening devices in your house, probably in your car. For some people, that puts them in a high-stress mentality, in a threat anticipation mode. True, but then how to explain what happened in China? In May 2018, an American posted in the consulate in Guangzhou was diagnosed with the very same mystery illness. Ultimately, 15 Americans were evacuated. While the seemingly airborne cause of these brain injuries is still a mystery, the The fallout is clear. The Americans removed 60% of their diplomats from Cuba and expelled 15 Cuban diplomats from Washington, D.C. The mysterious sounds may well be opening shots in a new kind of Cold War. Ghost ship, the Mary Celeste. On December 4th, 1872, a British-American ship called the Mary Celeste was found empty and adrift in the Atlantic. It was found to be seaworthy and with its cargo fully intact, except for a lifeboat, which it appeared had been boarded in an orderly fashion. But why? We may never know because no one on board was ever heard from again. In November 1872, the Mary Celeste set sail from New York, bound to Genoa, Italy. She was manned by Captain Benjamin Briggs and 7 crew members, including Briggs's wife and their 2-year-old daughter. Supplies on board were ample enough for 6 months and luxurious, including a sewing machine and an upright piano. Commentators generally agree that to precipitate the abandonment of a seaworthy ship, some extraordinary and alarming circumstances must have arisen. However, the last entry on the ship's daily log reveals nothing unusual, and inside the ship all appeared to be in order. Theories over the years have included mutiny, pirate attack, and an assault by a giant octopus or sea monster. In recent years, scientists have posed the theory that fumes from alcohol on board caused an explosion that, as a result of a scientific anomaly, did not leave behind signs of burning, but was terrifying enough that Briggs ordered everyone into a lifeboat. The Mary Celeste mystery ranks up there with the disappearance of Amelia Earhart in terms of captivating the imagination of generations that followed. Who and where is D.B. Cooper? The next unsolved mystery occurred on November 24th, 1971. Dan Cooper was a passenger on Northwest Airlines Flight 305 from Portland to Seattle, a 30-minute flight. He was described by passengers and flight attendants as a man in his mid-40s, wearing a dark suit, black tie with a mother-of-pearl tie clip, and a neatly pressed white-collared shirt. He took his seat, lit a cigarette, and politely ordered a bourbon and soda, for which he paid cash. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a note to a 23-year-old flight attendant, who ignored it, assuming it was just a man's phone number. "Miss, you'd better look at that note," Dan Cooper told her. "I have a bomb." The note's exact wording is a part of the mystery, since Cooper reclaimed it after the flight attendant read it, but his demands were $200,000 in negotiable American currency, worth $1 million today, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the plane on arrival. The flight attendant brought the demands to the captain. The airline's president authorized full cooperation. The other passengers had no idea what was happening, having been told that landing was delayed due to mechanical difficulties. At 5:39 p.m., the plane landed. An airline employee delivered a cash-filled knapsack and parachutes, and Cooper allowed all passengers and 2 flight attendants to leave the plane. During refueling, Cooper outlined his plan to the crew, a southeasterly course towards Mexico with 1 further refueling stop in Nevada. 2 hours later, the plane took off. When it landed in Reno, Cooper's absence was noted. Cooper, whom the media mistakenly referred to as D.B. Cooper, was never seen or heard from again. No parachute was found, and the ransom money was never used. In 1980, a young boy on vacation with his family in Oregon found several packets of the ransom money, identifiable by serial number, leading to an intense search of the area for Cooper or his remains. Nothing was ever found. In 2017, a parachute strap was found at one of Cooper's possible landing sites. Living statues. From 1917 to 1928, 500,000 people were afflicted with this ghastly condition that could be a part of the plotline of a horror movie. The victims, very much alive and conscious, found themselves in inexplicably frozen states, their static bodies prisons for their minds. Encephalitis lethargica, EL, aka the sleeping sickness, first appeared in Europe and quickly spread around the world, reaching epidemic levels in North America, Europe, and India by 1919. About a third of those stricken with the illness died. Of the survivors, nearly half eventually found themselves unable to physically interact with the world around them, all the while fully aware of their surroundings. Though occasionally capable of limited speech, eye motion, and even laughter, they generally appeared as living statues, totally motionless for hours, days, weeks, or years. The cause is unknown, but one theory is brain inflammation triggered by a rare strain of Streptococcus, the bacteria responsible for many sore throats each year. Science's best guess is that the bacteria mutated, provoking the immune system to attack the brain, leaving the victim helpless. None of this explains why the illness disappeared only to resurface sporadically, be it in Europe in the 1950s or in China 10 years ago when a 12-year-old girl was hospitalized for 5 weeks with the disease. Are such occurrences a new normal, or are they signs that EL could be planning something bigger any day? A 2004 analysis of 20 patients with symptoms remarkably similar to EL concluded that whatever ailed them is still prevalent. As such, history's so-called sleeping sickness remains the stuff of nightmares. What is Area 51? Area 51 in southern Nevada is a US military base, the very existence of which was unconfirmed until 2013 when the CIA was obliged to respond to a Freedom of Information Act request from 2005. Based on historical evidence, it would appear that Area 51 supports the development and testing of experimental aircraft and weapons. Public satellite images such as those available on Google Maps don't provide insight. Even those with security clearance to visit Area 51 are transported there from Las Vegas via an airline called Janet, whose planes are unmarked and which shrouds its windows upon descent. The intense secrecy surrounding Area 51 has sparked rumors that the government uses it to house crashed UFOs and conducts lab tests on aliens. Other theories about what Area 51 is used for include research on time travel, research on teleportation, meetings with extraterrestrials, development of a means for weather control, and activities related to shadowy one-world government. Where these theories come from is as much a mystery as Area 51 itself, but one thing is certain: people love a good conspiracy theory. At one point, conspiracy theorists believed that the moon landing in 1969 had been faked. Hint, it wasn't. Roaming ruins. It's not unusual to find junk in Brazil's Guanabara Bay, but what Robert Marks unearthed there in 1982 was an unusual kind of foreign matter. In an underwater field the size of 3 tennis courts located 24 kilometers from shore lay the remains of some 200 Roman ceramic jars, a few fully intact. According to Marks, a professional treasure hunter, the jars appear to be twin-handled amphorae that were first used to transport goods such as grain and wine in the 3rd century. But how did they get there? The first Europeans didn't reach Brazil until the year 1500. The Romans, who traded primarily in Mediterranean port cities and the Middle East, had little incentive to invest in ships that could cross oceans. However, they did sail as far as India. Perhaps some untrained navigator lost his way in a storm, or maybe mutineers steered the ship westward. We may never know, nor are we likely to uncover more evidence. Brazil closed the Bay of Jars to further research in 1983 in an effort to deter looters, it said. Marx claims the government didn't want the area explored because finding Roman-era artifacts there would mean that, contrary to Brazil's official history, the Portuguese were not the first Europeans to reach the country. And the truth? It's resting 30 meters under the sea. What is the Voynich Manuscript? The Voynich Manuscript is a roughly 250-page book written in an entirely unknown language and writing system. It's been carbon dated back to the 1400s and includes illustrations of plants that don't resemble any known species. It's named for the Polish book dealer who purchased it in 1912. It is believed to have been intended as a medical text. Its first confirmed owner was George Beresk, 1585-1662, an alchemist from Prague who discovered it taking up space uselessly in his library. Beresk tried to investigate the manuscript's origins, to no avail. The manuscript changed hands for centuries until it was purchased by Voynich, who posited that it was authorized by Albertus Magnus, an alchemist, or Roger Bacon, an early scientist. However, some believe that Voynich fabricated the manuscript and its history all by himself. Various other hoaxes have been proposed over the years, of course that wouldn't explain the carbon dating of the paper and ink. Centuries after its first alleged discovery, the Voynich manuscript remains as impenetrable and inexplicable as ever. Pollock sisters and reincarnation. Today, 24% of Americans believe in reincarnation, although scientists tend to discard the possibility. Every once in a while an unsolved mystery comes around that is so compelling and otherwise unexplainable that it gives even scientists a pause. That is what we have in the story of the Pollock sisters. In 1957, two young English sisters, Joanna Pollock and Jacqueline Pollock, died in a tragic car accident. 1 year later, their mother gave birth to twins, Gillian and Jennifer. When the twins were old enough to talk, they began identifying and requesting toys that had belonged to their dead sisters, pointing out landmarks only their dead sisters would have known, such as a school they'd attended, and sometimes panicking upon seeing cars idling. "That car is coming to get us," they reportedly shrieked on one occasion. After the twins turned 5, these incidents became less frequent and the girls went on to lead normal lives. Even still, the story of Pollock sisters made its way to Dr. Ian Stevenson, 1918 to 2007, a psychologist who studied reincarnation. After studying thousands of supposed cases, Dr. Stevenson wrote a book telling of 14 he believed to have been real, including that of the Pollock sisters. The lost colony of Roanoke. In 1587, John White led a group of people from Britain to found an English colony, settling on Roanoke Island, one of a chain of barrier islands now known as the Outer Banks of North Carolina. White left for more supplies, but on his return 3 years later, found the colony meticulously abandoned, with all houses and fortifications dismantled with care. Before he'd left the colony, White had instructed the colonists that if they were taken by force, they were to carve a cross into a nearby tree, but there was no cross. The only clue was the word Croatian, the name of a native tribe allied with the English, which was carved into a post. White took this to mean that the colonists had moved to Croatian Island, now known as Hatteras. Ensuing investigations turned up claims that the colonists had been slaughtered by the Powhatan tribe, but there is no archaeological evidence of this, and a recent re-examination of the primary sources indicates that any massacre that occurred was not of this particular group of colonists, but rather a group of colonists who had arrived earlier. More enduring theories involve integration between the colonists and the Croatians or other local tribes, but so far, no DNA evidence has positively identified any descendants of the colony. Bonus: the disappearance of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. The last of this collection of unsolved mysteries took place on March 8, 2014, while flying from Malaysia to China. A Boeing 777 carrying 239 passengers and crew members seems to have vanished into thin air. The multinational search effort, the largest in aviation history, has turned up a mere 20 pieces of aircraft debris. The Prime Minister of Malaysia has declined to comment other than to say that the aircraft disappeared over the Indian Ocean. The lack of closure has engaged multiple theories, many of which are considered conspiracy theories, which, according to Harvard professor Cass Sunstein, are a natural product of horrific and disastrous situations because such events make people angry, fearful, and looking for a target. Theories include hijacking, capture by the United States, crew suicide, since it was reported that the pilot was having marital problems, a fire aboard the aircraft, vertical entry to the sea, a meteor strike, and even alien abduction. Notwithstanding the passage of several years and the expenditure of $160 million, scouring thousands of square kilometers of ocean, the disappearance of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, as well as the 239 people aboard, remains a mystery. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more content.